Right, so hello, it is 7 p.m, someone is mowing the lawn, kids are screaming, and the sun might set, but it is July 30th and I really wanted to make this video before Jane Austen July ends, so bear with me. As you probably noticed from the title of this video, I'm going to rank all of Jane Austen's novels. I'm going to rank only the finished novels, so the kind of main 6 ones. Just a heads up, I'll be showing you the Polish editions, so on number 6 we have Sense and Sensibility. This is probably the only Jane Austen novel that I genuinely dislike, and I give it only 2 stars, and I don't think I will ever want to reread it because nothing happens. 90% of this book is just waiting for something to happen. I also don't think this is particularly well written. It doesn't have the kind of wit and humor that other Jane Austen's novels have. And the most infuriating part is the ending, because there are 2 kind of main characters of the story, which is also, I think, a disadvantage, because in other Jane Austen's novels there's only 1 main character. Here we have 2. I don't think we get enough in the head of the main heroines. We get in the head of Eleanor, but not really Marianne, and I think Marianne was more interesting personally, and I thought the ending was really kind of rushed and didn't make sense. The people they ended up with were kind of really? Marianne ends up with someone that I'm not sure if she actually loves, and Eleanor's love story is also very, very underwhelming. So, number 6. On place number 5 we have Mansfield Park, which I gave 3 stars to, and I anticipated to love Mansfield Park because I love introverted, shy characters that kind of stand by their morals, and Fanny was that, but she was so infuriating. I really thought I would like her, but she was a little bit too virtuous, to the point where I kind of felt like she was a little bit judgmental and kind of self-righteous. Also, there's the fact that she's in love with her cousin, which I understand at that time was normal, accepted by society and law, but it's still weird. Also, kind of a mild spoiler, but Fanny, the main character, ends up with a person really deeply cared about her and maybe was in love with her, but she kind of felt like a second choice, and I didn't really like that. Overall, I didn't find the story to be romantic at all. The most interesting part of the book was, in my opinion, the storyline of the Crawfords, Mary Crawford and the other guy, Henry Crawford? Yeah, they were the most interesting characters, to be honest. There was also a plot point where they were trying to put up a play, and it was going on for so long and then it went nowhere. I understand that putting up a play, especially that kind of play they were trying to do, because there are some people who are engaged or married, and there were some romantic or love scenes, not sexual love scenes, but some people were confessing love to each other, and it was, at the time, putting that kind of play at your house would be, I guess, considered scandalous. But I was so bored, I was like, let's just do it, come on. And Fanny was so against it, but didn't say anything, and I was like, just have some fun, girl. I felt like I would really relate to Fanny because I'm also very introverted and shy, but she was just annoying and very uptight, and I didn't like that. On place number 4 we have Emma, and Emma is kind of a middle point for me because I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. It's kind of, I feel very lukewarm about Emma, and I think it's one of her longest novels too. And it's so long and I just didn't care. And it's interesting because Emma is rich, and from the very beginning she says she doesn't want to marry because she doesn't need to. So reading from that kind of standpoint was interesting, and also her relationship, friendship with Mr. Knightley, who is her love interest, was also very interesting because there is an age gap between them, but they're really good friends and they really do deeply care for each other. So I liked seeing their friendship. So Emma is kind of purposefully unlikable because she's snobbish and kind of entitled, a little bit vain, but her actions are not kind of ill-intentioned. Like, she is well-meaning, but for all of her matchmaking, she kind of does a lot of stupid things. Emma was unlikable, but I understand that this was the point of it, because there's a lot of drama that I did not care about, but that drama lets Emma kind of realize her faults and like grow as a person. And also Mr. Knightley plays a big role in that, because like he tells her, like he scolds her, he tells her if she did something wrong. So there are some stuff that I liked about it. I was going to give it a 4-star, but then at the very end there is a important friendship that is kind of at the very core of this book that kind of ends at the end of the book, and I didn't like it. I understand there is a different end status between those two characters, but how it ended, it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth and I didn't like it, so in the end I give it 3.5 stars. Then on number 3 we have Northanger Abbey, and from here start books that I genuinely enjoy and like I really find pleasure in rereading. So Northanger Abbey is kind of a satire of gothic fiction, and it's super short and it's so fun and silly, and the main character, Catherine, she's a little bit naive, kind of silly, a little bit ignorant, but she's so endearing, so charming, so just lovely, and so genuine. I love that about her. So whenever there are some misunderstandings, she just like runs to those people who like misunderstood her actions or like words, and she like explains what she meant immediately, and I'm just like, wow, misunderstanding can be solved by just talking to each other. Groundbreaking. So yeah, another thing, she and her kind of love interest are kind of close in age, so their kind of cute banter is so lovely and endearing and fun. There's a fun quote from Northanger Abbey. Oh Jesus, the lighting is really weird. Okay, the quote that I want to share with you is about the main character. She was hardly ashamed of her ignorance, a misplaced shame. Where people wish to attach, they should always be ignorant. To come with a well-informed mind is to come with an inability of administering to the vanity of others, which a sensible person would always wish to avoid. A woman especially, if she have the misfortune of knowing anything, she should conceal it as well as she can. That's so funny. Like, people who read Jane Austen and say she's not funny, like, are we reading the same book? What was interesting about Northanger Abbey, and I don't think that happens in any other Jane Austen novel, Jane Austen kind of comes in as an author of the book and kind of comments on some actions of the main character. So if I remember correctly, let me check. Yeah. The first line of the book. No one who had ever seen Catherine Morland in her infancy would have supposed her born to be a heroine. In this book, Jane Austen actually addresses to the main character as a heroine of her novel, and she kind of comes in here and there and comments, like I said, on her actions, but it's not overdone at all. It's just so amusing, in my opinion, and funny. There is one thing that upon a reread I was a little bit unsatisfied with, and that's one of the reasons why I give it 4 stars, which is Henry. Henry is a lovely love interest, and he and Catherine are kind of close in age. The interactions between them are cute, but he tends to tease her a lot, and because Catherine is so naive and a little bit ignorant, sometimes she doesn't realize that, and sometimes when I was rereading it, I felt like there were times where his comments felt a little bit more like he was making fun of her than just teasing her, because if he was teasing her, I feel like she should realize that and kind of talk back and that would be cute, but sometimes it was a little bit it wasn't like mean-spirited, he didn't have ill intentions, but I was like, okay, Henry. Also, he's young, so like, I get it. And at that point, I don't think he was like in love with her, so he was like teasingly making fun of her. But I wouldn't want them to become the next like Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, where Mrs. Bennet is like ignorant and kinda dumb. But Catherine is very different. She's very genuine. She's very kind, and isn't like she isn't like Mrs. Bennet at all. But how Mr. Bennet teases Mrs. Bennet is a little bit mean. So sometimes I was like, okay, Henry, like tone it down a little bit. Also, Northanger Abbey is very interesting because it talks about novels a lot, and I was a little bit confused where Jane Austen was going with it, because on one side she kind of makes fun of Gothic novels, but at the same time she really kind of defends reading and writing novels. There's a quote that I would like to share too. "It is only a novel, or, in short, only some work in which the greatest powers of the mind are displayed, in which the most thorough knowledge of human nature, the happiest delineation of its varieties, the liveliest effusions of wit and humour are conveyed to the world in the best chosen language." So she's making fun of Gothic novels, but also defending novels in general, because in 19th century, from what I've heard, reading novels sometimes was a little bit frowned upon, especially by women. And I don't know, I've heard something about like novels being kind of looked down upon back in the day. So yeah, I'm just kind of like, what are you trying to do, Jane? The other reason why I didn't give it a higher rating is because the ending was a little bit abrupt, and spoiler, I guess, I wish we got a little bit more of like Henry being actually in love with Catherine. We didn't actually, I don't think we even got to see the proposal. It was kind of off the page, if I remember correctly. Also, it's silly, it's short, it's fun, I love it. But compared to her other novels that I higher up on my list, it didn't have like the depth of her other novels that I really like. So number 3, 4 stars, I still really enjoy it, and I enjoy rereading Northanger Abbey. So number 2 with 4.5 stars is Persuasion. I love Persuasion so much, you have no idea. Anne is an angel. But compared to Fanny, Anne is so unassuming. She assumes something. She's unassuming. Unassuming. I don't know. Like, she's just so kind, and she shows her kindness for her actions, which I didn't see with Fanny, because she's also, I'm comparing those two because they're both introverted and kind of a little bit meek, but in my opinion they're very different. Maybe I hate Fanny because I'm similar to Fanny, and like I wish I was like Anne, but I'm actually like Fanny, so that's why I hate her. I hope not. So, Persuasion. At first I didn't think I would like it, because it kind of starts off where the kind of main characters, the main character and her love interest already met, and she refused. At first she accepted his proposal to marry him, but then she was persuaded by her aunt, if I remember correctly, to not do that because he wasn't rich enough at that time. So she in the end didn't marry him. They split up, and then 10 years later, which is when this novel starts, they meet again. Drama ensues. And personally, I like seeing kind of first stages of a relationship. That's was the most interesting part in, when I'm reading some type of romance. But I love this. I have to say, I gave it 4.5 stars because the first half drags on. Like, it's such a short novel, but I remember reading it, and I finished the first chapter. I was like, oh, okay, so we're like getting the backstory. Then I finished next chapter and next chapter, and I was almost like halfway through, and I was like, I still felt like we were just like setting the scene and not much happened. So it kind of takes time to like get going, but there's a certain event kind of halfway through the book that sets kind of things in motion, and from that point until the end, things kind of constantly happen really quickly, and you cannot put the book down. And I have so many quotes, especially from the second half of the book, and it's amazing. So it's kind of slow paced, but like, don't give up, and I guarantee you the second half is a lot better than the first half. There's a lot of interesting conversations in this book, like what would be considered a good company, or like there's a scene at the end where Anne talks with, I don't remember who it is, I will put the name on the screen, friend of a friend, I don't remember who he is, he's not very important to the story, but they're talking about like female inconstancy, or like women's fickleness, and Anne is like defending women and it's so like, Persuasion is so feminist. You have no idea. And in that scene we also have the love letter. if a person I'm in love with doesn't write me a love letter like that, I don't want them. Like, it's the most beautiful thing I have ever read in literature ever. Oh, like, honestly, that chapter, that scene is genuinely like my favorite scene in all of literature. There's also, like, there are two top scenes in books, like scenes, chapters. This one in Persuasion is like, I think it's like second to last chapter or something like that. And there's one in The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. Also, where two characters just like have a conversation, like nothing really happens, but it's such an interesting conversation. It's kind of like borderline philosophical, and I love that. So in here there's something like that, and in House of Mirth there's something that there's a really interesting scene also. Yeah, there's also like I said, when it comes to like feminist themes, there is, I remember there was a scene where there was a couple, like an older couple, and the guy was in the Navy, and the wife was talking about how she would like travel with him on like ships. And I remember Captain Wentworth was saying, "Oh, I would never take a woman on my ship." And the wife, the lady, I don't remember her name, I would put it on the screen, she said, "I hate to hear you talk about all women as if they were fine ladies instead of rational creatures. None of us want to be in calm waters all our lives." I love that. I also really enjoyed Anne's kind of growth throughout the story. She was like, from the beginning she was amazing, but because she was persuaded to not marry Captain Wentworth, it kind of, from Captain Wentworth's standpoint, it kind of made her kind of weak-minded. What do you call that? Like, easily persuaded. Yeah, persuasion, easily persuaded. And throughout the story, I think Anne learns to kind of stand up for herself, and that standing up for yourself does not make you selfish, and that her views and opinions are important. So we love character growth. And the last thing I want to say about Persuasion, because like people, I touched upon it before, but like people say that Jane Austen is not funny and stuff, and like, let me show you a thing, okay? So there, in Persuasion, there's a scene, I don't remember exactly, but two sisters talk about their brother that died while he was in the Navy. And let me tell you, that character called Richard is a complete non-character. Like, he isn't important to the story at all. In this scene, Anne is listening to those two sisters talk about, "Oh, poor Richard, he died, we loved him so much," and then like kind of changes to like narrative style, not dialogue, and it says, "The real circumstances of this pathetic piece of family history were that Musgroves had had the ill fortune of a very troublesome, helpless son, and the good fortune to lose him before he reached his 20th year, that he had been sent to sea because he was stupid and unmanageable on the shore, that he had been very little cared for, and at any time by his family, though quite as much as he deserved, seldom heard of and scarcely at all regretted, when the intelligence of his death abroad had worked its way to Uppercross 2 years before. He had, in fact, though his sisters were now doing all they could for him by calling him poor Richard, been nothing better than a thick-headed, unfeeling, unprofitable Dick Musgrove, who had never done anything to entitle himself to more than abbreviation of his name, living or dead." Like, Jane Austen had no business going off like that on this like non-character, but she did, and I love her for that. And also, like, nothing better than a classic Dick joke, you know? So, on number one, unsurprisingly, I'm a basic bitch, Pride and Prejudice. I love it. And I literally have nothing to tell you because it's a perfect novel. Like, I have no critique. This book made me realize that reading classics can be fun, can be enjoyable, and they can be easier to understand. And it just, like, this is where my journey with classics, like, after high school started again. So I have a very deep attachment to this book. And yeah, I really don't know what to tell you about this. It is my favorite. Like, the pacing of this book, like, something constantly happens. This is so well written. The wit, the humor, it's just, it's all there. This is honestly, I think, as good as it gets when it comes to Jane Austen, so read it if you haven't. If you have, tell me, is Pride and Prejudice your favorite? Are you a basic bitch like me? Let's talk. So, that's it. I finally done the video that I wanted to do from the very beginning when I created my channel, so can I get a hallelujah? I wanted to make a video about Jane Austen adaptations because I feel very strongly about that topic. But, you know, it is the end of Jane Austen July, it is July 30th, so I don't think I can, like, make it in time. So, maybe next year, unless you want me to, like, do it and just, like, it won't be posted during Jane Austen July. But I don't know if anyone would care, but I would be willing to do it. That's it. The sun is slow at setting, but I think it was bearable throughout the video, so okay, see you next time. Bye!